The day before the engagement, Stetson Wrigley's first love confronted me. She wore a red dress, looking completely different from her usual sickly appearance, and smiled as she made a bet with me. "If I don't want you two to get engaged, it won't happen. Miss Mossman, just wait and see." As she said, the engagement did not succeed. When Stetson Wrigley received the news that she had a depression attack, he went crazy. The guests were already gathered outside. In the dressing room, Stetson angrily tore off the tie that matched his white suit. He grabbed his car keys, and while walking out, he left a sentence behind for me. "Harriet, I'm sorry. I have to see her." My heart turned cold, and I blocked his path, telling him that if he dared to walk out that door today, we would be completely over. He impatiently furrowed his brows and blamed me. "Harriet Mossman, that's enough. I've already agreed to marry you. What more do you want? Don't forget, it was you who begged me for this engagement." I looked at him in disbelief. How did the alliance between our two families turn into me begging him in his words? He didn't want to say more, pushed me away, and strode out. I almost fell to the ground, but the stylist beside me caught me. After a moment of hesitation, she still cautiously asked, "Miss Mossman, do you still want to change your clothes?" I looked at the custom-made wedding dress that had been prepared a year in advance, without any hesitation, yes. The engagement ceremony proceeded as usual. Dragging my luxurious dress, I stood on the stage and informed both families and the guests of this unfortunate news. My grandfather was furious upon hearing this, and he immediately pointed at Stetson's grandfather and cursed, "Mr. Wrigley, is this the good grandson you raised? Who was it that came to me wanting our Harriet to marry into the Wrigley family as a granddaughter-in-law?" Mr. Wrigley, sitting in a high position, was utterly humiliated by the scolding. His face turned livid and he slammed the table, cursing that ungrateful brat. "Call him back right now and see if I don't beat him to death." Among the astonished guests, Reuben Wrigley, the second young master of the Wrigley family, watched the scene with an amused expression. He lazily drank red wine and looked at me with a mocking smile. I met Reuben Wrigley's gaze directly and continued. "This engagement has taken a lot of time and effort. Reuben Wrigley, now I need a fiancé. Do you have the guts to step up?" Everyone was shocked by my words. All eyes turned to the flamboyant and arrogant second young master of the Wrigley family in the audience. Reuben was the son of Stetson's aunt, and he never participated in the Wrigley family's business. Wasn't Stetson most proud of being the future heir of the Wrigley Group? Then I'll let him know that anyone can take that position. The man in the audience raised his eyebrows, a small smile forming at the corner of his mouth, and slowly stood up under the bright lights. "It's my honor to receive Miss Mossman's invitation." Reuben walked onto the stage amidst everyone's gaze, raised his hand to take the ring box from the MC, and with his long fingers, took out the diamond ring. He placed it on my middle finger. After putting it on, his tall figure approached me. In the next second, he embraced me with his long arms, one hand cradling my neck, and lowered his head to kiss me. There was a burst of cheering and screaming below, champagne and confetti exploded simultaneously. He whispered in my ear, somewhat regretfully, "Harriet, you should have chosen me earlier. But it's not too late now." I saw a gleam of wicked and joyful light in his eyes. Ding! This novel reminds you to click the subscribe button in the bottom right corner to read the complete novel. Stetson's parents kept complaining about how this couldn't be acceptable. They were furious. Back when their sister died, the old Mr. Wrigley brought Reuben back and they tried everything to stop it. They never expected that now Reuben would even try to take their son's girlfriend. Mr. Wrigley shouted sternly, telling them to shut up. "Enough. Stetson has done something so disgraceful to our family, and you're not ashamed. It's our family that has wronged Harriet. Harriet choosing anyone from our family would be an honor." My grandfather snorted coldly after hearing this and didn't even let them stay for dinner, just kicked them out. Originally, the people in the Wrigley group who sided with Stetson saw the situation turning and immediately started cozying up to Reuben at the engagement party. I chose Reuben not just to help him for nothing. That day, I made it clear to him. If he fully cooperated with me to complete the project between our two families, I would help him take over the Wrigley Group. My family is in the pharmaceutical industry, and I've always wanted to develop a new line, a health drink that suits the tastes of the younger generation. Through this, we reached a collaboration with the beverage giant, the Wrigley Group. However, people in the Mossman Group have always been skeptical, just waiting to see me make a fool of myself. As long as I successfully implement the cooperation between the two families, I can use the results to slap those old fogies in the group who look down on me. His dark eyes fixed on my face, not knowing what he was thinking or how much he had understood. I glared at him, and he suddenly smiled, leaned close to me, and spoke softly. "Harriet, shouldn't we be thinking about going on a honeymoon trip now? We're not even getting married." "What honeymoon?" I replied irritably. "Did you understand what I just said?" He shook his head. Well, he never handled the Wrigley family business, so it would probably take him a long time to get the hang of it. "Forget it. I'll help him." I was just about to explain things to him properly when he suddenly pulled me into his arms and I instinctively pressed against his chest. His nose touched mine, and his deep eyes enticed me before he kissed me. "Teach me, Harriet, and I'll learn." "Stop." I didn't. I subconsciously pushed him. I only planned to use him to get back at Stetson, not to actually get involved with him, but my voice was swallowed by his kiss, leaving me dazed. Suddenly, he lifted me off the ground and carried me to the bedroom. Afraid of falling, I wrapped my arms around his neck and clamped my legs around his waist. Reuben gently placed me on the bed, kneeled beside me, and his warm breath brushed against my face. He lifted my face, his eyes filled with that unique mischievousness. "Harriet, the best way to get back at a man is to completely forget about him." We locked eyes, and I pondered over his words. It did make some sense. We're adults, there's no need to play the innocent game. I closed my eyes, waiting for him to go further, but he stopped. He kissed my forehead lightly, "But I still want to wait until you're willing." Then he pulled the blanket over me and patted my head like a child. "You must be tired today. Get some rest." I opened my eyes and kicked him in frustration. He laughed softly for a long time, then stopped teasing and grabbed another blanket to sleep beside me. After 3 days, Stetson finally remembered me, his fiancée. He called me, asking when I would return to our home. How funny, what home do we have? The wedding house was bought by me, the furniture arranged by me, and he didn't contribute anything yet had the nerve to ask me. Stetson's voice sounded particularly hollow, filled with resentment as he questioned me. "You took everything from the wedding house. Are you not planning to come back? You even took the bed. Do you want me to sleep on the streets?" He got it wrong. I didn't take it. I sold everything. I even sold the house, and the agent hadn't had time to change the lock. I adjusted my sun hat and leisurely sipped my drink. Go find your first love. The bed in her rental place is enough for both of you. If she tries to hurt herself again, you can save her in time. Otherwise, by the time she gets to the hospital, her wounds might have healed, and the doctors would laugh. All these years, it's the same old tricks of pretending to be ill and hurting herself, and Stetson, the fool, falls for it every time. Mentioning his first love always made Stetson angry, and sure enough, he got furious on the other end of the line. He started lecturing me in a condescending tone. "This is our business. Why drag her into it? Harriet Mossman, I'm treating your thing with my brother as a joke. I'm very busy and don't have time to pick you up. I'm giving you a chance to back down now, or you'll regret it when there's no way out." Ridiculous, who gave him such a big ego to think he could give me a chance? In a foreign land, Reuben grabbed my phone and lazily responded. "Brother, she doesn't need a way out. Take good care of your first love. I'll take care of Harriet." There was a second of silence on the other end, followed by an outburst of curses, and Reuben slowly hung up the phone. He smiled warmly and shrugged. He is really petty. If it were me, I'd only care if Harriet is happy. I rolled my eyes at him. He could drop the act around me. His smile faded and he stared straight at my face, then grabbed my chin and kissed me until I almost couldn't stand. All right, don't think about that man in front of me. I'll get jealous. Come on, let's fly, he said, then gallantly led me onto a plane. He flew a helicopter to 3,000 meters high, showing me the magnificent mountains and seas below. At this moment, my world was vast and beautiful, free from all the troubles, making me feel utterly refreshed. Maybe I should have done this sooner, not been entangled in love. These years have worn me out, leaving me lifeless. Reuben truly lived up to his reputation as the most playful and carefree young master of the Wrigley family. We spent half a month abroad before returning home, doing something new and exciting every day. Gliding, surfing, skydiving. It turned out my world could be more than just work and the messy love triangle with Stetson. As I rapidly descended from the sky, the wind howling past my ears, my heart leapt into my throat. Yet I felt an inexplicable surge of vitality. After being confined for so long, returning to nature was invigorating. Love and romance seemed so insignificant. Let the drama of competing for a man go to hell. I stretched out my arms and embraced the vast world. When I landed back on solid ground, my soul gradually returned to my body and it felt like a new seed was sprouting inside me. Reuben gently removed my goggles and tidied my messy hair with a soft touch. He clicked his tongue and said, "You didn't cry." I joked, "What, did all the other girls you brought cry?" He sighed, lamenting that I thought so little of him. "You're the first and the only one." Then he turned serious. "The first and only girl who soaked my shirt with her tears." I was taken aback, remembering a few years ago when I caught Stetson passionately kissing Gemma in a secluded corridor. I turned around and bumped into Reuben. He glanced at the kissing couple, then looked at me with a mocking expression. My tears fell instantly, leaving him at a loss. Finally, he held me in his arms and let me cry to my heart's content. He asked me back then what was so good about Stetson, and I couldn't answer. Who can explain the nature of liking someone? Maybe it was the care he showed me when we were young. Or perhaps it was the confident and dazzling young man in the crowd who happened to capture my heart at a certain moment, affecting my entire youth. Since then, my happiness and sadness were tied to him. But now, he was no longer the person I liked in my youth. I snapped out of my thoughts and angrily hit Reuben, making him laugh at me. He pretended to be in pain, then put away his usual carefree attitude, extended his hand to me, and said seriously, "All right, adventure time is over. Mess. Mossman, from today on, start your new life." I looked at him, the sunlight casting a golden glow around him, and I saw a new life reaching out to me. I took a deep breath and smiled brightly. Okay, I heard that Stetson was searching for me all over the world, and every time he went to my house, my grandfather drove him away. My grandfather never liked seeing me chasing after Stetson, so this situation suited him perfectly. Stetson was beaten to a pulp by his grandfather and had to kneel at home for 3 days before Mr. Wrigley gave him another chance to win me back. This routine had been going on for years. I used to forgive him time and again because I liked him, but this time even if he knelt until he died, I wouldn't look back at him. When Reuben was driving me home, we were chatting and laughing when a dark figure suddenly rushed out. Stetson saw me hugging his brother goodbye, and his face turned extremely ugly. He angrily punched his brother with red eyes. He roared, "Reuben, have you no shame? You can date anyone, but not her. She's your sister-in-law. How are you any different from a homewrecker?" I instinctively shielded Reuben, asking if he was okay. Reuben stood up unsteadily and gently patted my head with his long fingers. He coaxed me to stay aside obediently. After wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth and glancing at it, he swung back with a precise and fierce punch, knocking Stetson to the ground. Grabbing Stetson by the collar, he pinned him against the wall, slowly raised his captivating eyes, and smirked wickedly. "Why are you yelling at me, brother? If Harriet didn't like me, would I have the chance to be a homewrecker? If you think it's wrong for me to be a homewrecker, just give Harriet to me. Then I wouldn't be a homewrecker. Being a homewrecker is just a way to prove my charm. Besides, now that Harriet has chosen me, you're the homewrecker. How funny. Ruben's words were even more manipulative than Gemma's. I felt so embarrassed that I wanted to dig a hole and hide. This time, Stetson could finally tell the difference between sincere and insincere. His eyes widened. He knew his brother's character, but he didn't expect him to be so shameless. Fuming with anger, Stetson shoved his brother aside, turned around, and raised his fist, ready to teach him a lesson. Reacting quickly, I didn't think twice and swung my bag, knocking Stetson to the ground. He clutched his head and took a while to get up. Stetson looked at me in disbelief, unable to recover from the shock of me hitting him. Harriet, you actually hit me for him. Ruben, on the other hand, leaned lightly into the flower bed, looking at me with a pitiful expression. Harriet, look at how rough my brother is. My head hurts. I need a kiss from you to feel better. Stetson's veins bulged with anger at his brother's manipulative words. Ignoring everything else, he came towards me and grabbed me, refusing to let me help Ruben. He threatened me domineeringly. Harriet, do you dare to help him? I ignored him and extended my hand directly to help Ruben up. Ruben pretended to be injured, leaning against me, glaring provocatively at Stetson. Brother is too perverted. He even controls who you help. Luckily, you didn't choose him. Otherwise, his pettiness would have driven you mad. Stetson clenched his fists in fury, pointing at Ruben and cursing. He's just pretending, and you believe him. Harriet, are you so desperate for love? Does anyone work for you? Before he could finish, I slapped him. I had endured him long enough. I looked at him, sneering coldly. I'm not desperate for just anyone. For example, you're not good enough. Stetson Wrigley, do you think I can't live without you? Today, I'm telling you, I, Harriet Mossman, am with your brother. Boldly, I held Ruben's hand, letting him see clearly. Now, you can leave. Stetson didn't believe it. He was convinced that his brother was seducing me and insisted that I open my eyes. I didn't have the patience to argue with him and called the bodyguards at the door to keep the madman out. Ruben grasped my hand tightly, signaling to his brother with a smug smile. Brother, it's too cold outside. I'll go home with my fiancé first. You should go back early too. If you catch a cold, no one will pity you. Stetson, blocked by the bodyguards, went crazy, cursing wildly. He kicked the stone lion at my house to vent his anger, but ended up hurting his own foot, crouching on the ground for a long time before getting up. The liaison for the project with Wrigley Group changed from Stetson to Ruben. I personally requested it. Mr. Wrigley saw that I was determined to break with Stetson and had to agree. After all, my family invested heavily to save the Wrigley Company back then, and Mr. Wrigley had to consider my opinion. With the personnel change, the cooperation went much smoother. Previously, dealing with Stetson was always frustrating. He would dismiss my ideas without even trying, and when he did execute, the results were far from my expectations. His subordinates showed me no respect, leading to countless arguments between us. Ruben didn't use the original team, but quickly assembled a new, experienced, and reliable group. They adapted quickly, and I was very satisfied. Ruben's vision and decision-making ability far exceeded my expectations. He could spot issues in the project at a glance. I realized I had underestimated him, thinking he was useless. Noticing my gaze, he lifted his eyes and smiled. I told you, I wouldn't let you regret it. I crossed my arms, showing my anticipation. As we finalized the next steps, there was a commotion outside. Stetson pushed past the security guard, storming into my company's meeting room in a fit of rage. He threw the documents in front of me, nearly hitting my face, but Ruben's long arm blocked them just in time. His arm was cut and started bleeding. He hissed in pain. Stetson began to berate me without holding back. Harriet Mossman, are you out of your mind? I am the person in charge of this project. When will you be able to separate work from personal feelings? I ignored him, grabbed Ruben's scratched hand, and called for an assistant to bring some disinfectant. Then I calmly looked at the rabid Stetson and spoke. Oh, well, you're not in charge anymore. It seems some people still haven't sobered up. So let me remind you, Mr. Wrigley, the focus of this project has always been our Mossman Company, not your Wrigley Company, and certainly not you. If you have nothing else, please leave and close the door behind you. He was instantly speechless, knowing that I, as the client, had the authority to replace the team, but he was unwilling to back down. He frowned, searching for a new reason to accuse me of being despicable. I just went to see Gemma for a moment. Do you really need to make such a big deal out of it? She's not well, and I promised her mother I would help take care of her. Why do you always overthink things? You have money, love, family, and me. Why do you even need to take away the little care I give her? His shameless arguments disgusted me every time I heard them. I looked at his hypocritical face and sneered, mocking him. Would you say the same if I caught you two in bed, that you were just chatting under the covers? And if it weren't for you, Gemma wouldn't even have the right to know me. Whether she lives or dies has nothing to do with me. Stetson Wrigley, do you think you're so important that I would waste my effort to compete? If you can't give me your undivided love, then get out of my life. Stetson was stunned, as the old me would easily fall into the trap of proving I wasn't jealous of Gemma. My current indifferent attitude left him momentarily at a loss. At this moment, Reuben pretended to have a headache and leaned his head on my shoulder. Harriet, a few days ago, brother hit me, and I still feel a bit uncomfortable. I'm just quietly taking care of you. I don't know why brother would overthink. Reuben knew how to anger his brother. Stetson was infuriated after hearing this and took a step forward. He couldn't hit me, but he could hit his brother. However, before he could act, the security guards I had called blocked him. From now on, don't let unrelated people in casually. The security guards stepped forward to push him out. For the first time, the once high-spirited Mr. Wrigley was thrown out in front of everyone, and in his fury, he left with a warning. Harriet Mossman, mark my words, the heir of the Wrigley Group will never be an outsider. I apologized. I offered you the position of Mrs. Wrigley, and you were the one who didn't want it. Don't come crying with regret later. I paid him no mind, closed the door, and called everyone to continue the meeting. In the future, who would regret? It was still uncertain. After Stetson left, he deliberately tried to sabotage our collaborative projects, but each time Reuben easily resolved the issues. The people of the Wrigley Group usually act so high and mighty, yet they all respect Reuben. I can't help but suspect there's something more to this. Perhaps it's more accurate to say he's always been pretending to be a fool to catch the wise. The Wrigley Group is truly interesting. Reuben, how many more surprises do you have for me? Without the previous person in charge of our collaboration with the Wrigley Group constantly shirking work to chase after his first love. And others obstructing us. The project progressed very quickly. After several months of hard work, our team successfully launched the health tea product. The marketing team targeted young consumers and leveraged the health tea selling point, using the internet to create a buzz that immediately made the brand go viral. Monthly revenue directly surpassed $1 billion, causing a sensation. My grandfather and old Mr. Wrigley attended our celebration banquet together, praising us young people for being daring and capable. They said it was time to let the younger generation take over with confidence. Stetson didn't come, using the excuse of not feeling well. I heard he was so angry behind the scenes that he trashed his office. He never expected that the project he looked down on would be such a huge success. The senior executives of the Mossman Group no longer dared to look down on me because I'm a woman. They changed my title from Miss to President Mossman, and their attitudes became more respectful. When Reuben raised his glass to celebrate with me, I smiled and accepted, inviting him to watch the upcoming show with me. I'm someone who always keeps my word. I told him that helping him take over the Wrigley Group was not just talk. He nodded happily. I'm someone who always believes in beautiful ladies. Stetson repeatedly failed to sabotage our collaboration and messed up his own work as well. He was always lovey-dovey with his first love, and whenever Gemma acted out, he would rush home anxiously, leading to several major errors in his work, almost causing serious mistakes. Old Mr. Wrigley didn't say anything, so Stetson didn't care either. He always thought that as the eldest grandson of the Wrigley family, no matter how hard Reuben worked, he could never compete with him, the legitimate young master of the Wrigley family. Watching Stetson's antics from behind, I snickered and suddenly felt fortunate that I woke up early enough and didn't get dragged into the abyss by such a foolish and brainless person. After these days of hard work, I realized that compared to love, I need someone who shares my ambitions and my career, someone who can always fight alongside me. I turned my gaze to Reuben, who was toasting and socializing with the big shots at the business banquet. If I were to go along with this mistake, it might not be so bad. The day of old Mr. Wrigley's 80th birthday. The banquet was grand, with 100 tables and luxury cars filling the parking lot. Celebrities from all walks of life attended, dressed formally, men in suits and women in gowns, all bringing gifts. The son is incompetent, the grandson is love-struck, and old Mr. Wrigley, at 80, still hasn't officially retired. Rumors have been circulating that he might announce his successor at this birthday banquet. In the past, I used to accompany Stetson, but this time I came with Reuben. Our arrival caused quite a stir, as the news of the engagement switch had already spread across various circles. Stetson and his first love arrived a step later than us. Gemma was meticulously dressed in a stunning red dress, her hair elegantly up. Those unaware might have thought this birthday banquet was for her. She clung to Stetson's arm, looking at me smugly, waiting for old Mr. Wrigley to announce the successor and humiliate me. Everyone was watching us, anticipating a dramatic showdown. Gemma couldn't resist her petty urge and started scrutinizing Reuben beside me. "Miss Mossman doesn't seem to like Stetson that much, do you? You changed your heart so quickly." Before I could respond, Reuben spoke up first. Reuben leisurely swirled his red wine, glancing at her indifferently, still with that cocky, careless demeanor, his words sharp as ever. "Oh, Miss Gemma is still alive. Didn't they issue a critical condition notice? Must be a quack doctor. Don't go to that hospital next time. And didn't my brother give you money? Why are you wearing a knockoff dress?" Gemma had really picked the wrong person to mess with. She didn't know that Reuben never spared anyone, regardless of age or gender, when it came to insults. Even a dog would leave with its head down after encountering him. Gemma's face turned red with anger, but because it was true, she didn't dare to argue loudly and instead played the victim in front of Stetson. "Stetson, I didn't. You know me." Over the years, Gemma had made quite a bit of money by Stetson's side. I never understood why she couldn't bear to buy a genuine dress. In the past, to outshine me, she wore knockoff copies of my dresses to banquets. Stetson, for her sake, would belittle my attire, forcing me to change. This time was no different. Stetson pulled her protectively, glaring at Reuben to show some respect. He blocked our way, demanding that we apologize for humiliating his first love. "You can bully me, but not Gemma. You both must apologize to Gemma today." Reuben and I exchanged glances, as if hearing the world's biggest joke. I parted my red lips slightly. "The dead don't deserve it. Neither do you." Stetson was instantly enraged. To save face, he grabbed my arm and threatened, "Harriet, if you don't apologize today, once I become the chairman, I'll cancel all collaborations with the Mossman Group." Before he could finish, I turned and kicked his injured knee. He fell to his knees behind me with a thud while Gemma, beside him, protectively held her stomach in shock. Everyone watching held their breath, covering their mouths and whispering, "Is this the Harriet they said was obsessed with Stetson?" If there weren't people around, I think she'd beat him to death. "I told you, a true heiress would never be interested in someone like Stetson." I retracted my leg and smiled at Stetson and Gemma. "I'll be watching." With that, I took Reuben's arm and walked away. Reuben lowered his voice and chuckled. "Cool." I raised my glass and clinked it with his, warning him not to mess with me in the future, or the outcome would be even worse. At Mr. Wrigley's birthday banquet, Stetson didn't dare make a scene. He glanced at the surrounding guests and finally had to swallow his pride. On stage, a celebrity was singing, and Stetson's first love also got up to sing a birthday song for old Mr. Wrigley. It was said that Gemma was pregnant and the two of them wanted to take this opportunity to please old Mr. Wrigley. They believed that with a great-grandchild on the way, old Mr. Wrigley would be overjoyed and would surely agree to Gemma marrying into the Wrigley family on the spot, and announced that Stetson was the successor of the Wrigley family. Old Mr. Wrigley just took one look and his face turned displeased. Is there no stage outside for her to perform on? Is it that she doesn't know the occasion, or that you, Stetson Wrigley, don't know the occasion? Old Mr. Wrigley's voice carried authority without anger, and the person in charge of the event immediately understood his meaning. They hurriedly adjusted the program and drove Gemma off the stage while she was singing. She looked towards me, sitting next to old Mr. Wrigley, thinking I had spoken ill of her to old Mr. Wrigley, and glared at me hatefully before turning to Stetson to act pitifully. Stetson, not daring to go against his grandfather's wishes, had no choice but to ask her to step down first, promising to take her to see his grandfather later. When it was time for the birthday congratulations, Reuben Sweet talked old Mr. Wrigley, making him smile from ear to ear. Old Mr. Wrigley looked at me and Reuben with satisfaction, nodding and saying that if this man ever dared to bully me, he would back me up. I smiled. How could that be? Reuben and I get along very well, both in work and in life. Old Mr. Wrigley raised his cloudy eyes to look at Reuben, as if he was seeing his long-deceased daughter through him. When it was Stetson's turn, he came hand in hand with Gemma. Old Mr. Wrigley immediately stood up and said he was tired. No need to see outsiders. Reuben, help Grandpa entertain the guests. I'll go rest for a while. Just as he was about to leave, his cane paused, and he turned back to Stetson. I've heard that Miss Gemma's health isn't good and you've been running back and forth between the company and home. In that case, Stetson, you should take a break and spend some good time with your Miss Gemma. Stetson's face changed on the spot, and Gemma's face also turned extremely awkward, holding on to him helplessly. Once he was old Mr. Wrigley's most beloved grandson. He thought they were always a family and planned to use the great-grandchild to make old Mr. Wrigley happy this time to rightfully take over CEO position. Unexpectedly, old Mr. Wrigley's attitude was so resolute. Old Mr. Wrigley asking Reuben to entertain the guests carried almost the weight of announcing to the outside world who the future head of the Wrigley family would be. Stetson looked at me and Reuben, his face filled with hidden resentment. I looked at him provocatively, as if to remind him that I had told him long ago, it was my choice that made him the heir, right? Stetson always thought that now the Wrigley Group had risen. They didn't need to rely on our Mossman Group anymore and never took it seriously. What he didn't know was that the condition my grandfather set for helping the Wrigley Group back then was that whoever I, Harriet Mossman, chose would be the successor of the Wrigley Group. This morning, my grandfather had pressured old Mr. Wrigley, reminding him not to make any foolish mistakes. Although old Mr. Wrigley was not in the company, he surely knew everything that had been happening in the company these days. And I believe that for the long-term development of the company, he would have his own considerations. Stetson was kicked out of the Wrigley Group's headquarters. Old Mr. Wrigley said he was too reckless and should go gain some experience below before coming back. His original position was temporarily taken over by Reuben, who started to aggressively suppress his influence after taking power. Various negative news about the project Stetson previously managed began to surface, and even the car accident of Reuben's parents was brought up for discussion. Back then, the youngest daughter of the Wrigley family was a prominent figure in the business world and was once seen as the heir by outsiders. Unfortunately, a car accident took both her and her husband's lives, leaving the young Reuben behind. There were always rumors that their deaths were suspicious, with everything pointing to Stetson's parents. After all, they were too mediocre in ability, and if they didn't get rid of the sister, they would have to live under her shadow for life. My grandfather also had suspicions back then. He didn't comment much, but his attitude towards the Wrigley family's eldest made it clear that it was likely true. I was vaguely worried and reminded Reuben during a meal not to act too hastily. The Wrigley family is scarier than ghosts. Reuben didn't take it seriously and even smiled at me. Are you worried about me? At such a time, he still had the mood to joke. I pretended to be angry, but he just curled his lips and then laughed heartily. I'm very happy that you care about me. The restaurant performer started playing the violin, and Ruben stood up to invite me. Miss, may I have the honor of a dance? His eyes were smiling, his manners gentlemanly, just like back then. Many years ago, at a charity gala, Stetson insisted on dancing with his old flame, ignoring my feelings, and it was Ruben who saved my dignity that night. He was in a tailcoat, standing tall and straight, with a faint smile on his lips, extending his hand to invite me to dance. That night, he overshadowed Gemma, bringing me into the center of attention. I wasn't good at dancing, so he guided me, helped me relax, and let me trust him completely. That was the first time I felt at ease and happy, my body relaxing in his arms and my smile brighter than usual. He looked down and asked me if it was worth it. I stubbornly replied that it was none of his business. So for many years after, he always looked at me with a smile as I tangled with Stetson. I danced gracefully in his arms and he leaned in closer, our noses touching. Is it possible that I liked you back then? Then he corrected himself. No, it was even earlier. Do you remember the first time we met? Memories from childhood flooded my mind. The first time we met was when he had just returned to the Wrigley family, being mocked by other kids for being an orphan. I also grew up without parents and understood that helplessness, so I stepped forward to drive the bullies away, only to get my palm whipped by my grandfather for fighting. I widened my eyes in realization. Could this be the so-called suspension bridge effect? But how old was he back then? The music stopped and he kissed my lips at that moment, he whispered. Miss Mossman, it really took you a long time to turn around, but luckily I still waited for you. I blushed belatedly. While I was working, my eyelids suddenly twitched. I had a feeling that something was going to happen and my phone suddenly rang with a call. When I answered, someone told me that Ruben had been in a car accident and was in the hospital. Is history repeating itself? I knew that someone as petty as Stetson was capable of anything. I nearly lost my balance, grabbed my keys, and rushed to the hospital, praying that Ruben would be okay. When I arrived, a car covered with a white sheet passed by me, and I saw the police speaking to a doctor. I was convinced that Ruben had been in an accident and ran straight towards the gurney. I cried my heart out, my mind filled with memories of our recent days together. He saved me on stage, flew me above the clouds, and deliberately annoyed my ex for me. I don't know how long I was immersed in grief, but someone patted my shoulder. With tears and snot all over my face, I turned to see him with a slight scratch on his forehead, hands in his pockets, smiling at me. Who are you crying for? If it's your ex, I might get jealous. With that familiar, infuriating expression, I ran towards him and he hugged me tightly. He was fine. He always played with cars and had great driving skills, perfectly avoiding this accident. However, his uncle's family was confirmed to have hired someone to kill him, and Ruben had already caught the person and handed them over to the police. These days, Ruben had been deliberately suppressing Stetson's faction to force them into a corner, making them reveal their true colors. Sure enough, Stetson's people couldn't sit still, fearing that their plot to kill Ruben's parents years ago would be exposed. So they tried the same trick with this car accident. Stetson and his father were taken in for questioning. Although they initially refused to admit anything, they eventually gave in to the evidence. Gemma, seeing that Stetson was in trouble, tried to flee abroad with her child overnight but was stopped by the police. She was reported for fraud. It turned out that all the money she had been saving was for this. She confessed that she never loved any man and only ever loved money. After crying, I suddenly realized something. You used me on purpose, didn't you? Ruben wiped away my tears and shook his head in denial. No, returning to the Wrigley Group was planned a long time ago. I spent 5 years preparing for a takeover. Didn't you notice that most of the Wrigley Group's people are mine? So, even if you chose him, I had a way to bring him down. I had noticed that those people listened to him. His voice was soft, as if handling a treasure. I originally planned to wait until I was in that position to take you away from him. Fortunately, fate helped me and brought you back to my side. With that, he domineeringly pulled me back into his arms and gave me a light kiss on the forehead. At night, I lay in bed after taking a shower. Reuben leaned against the door, lifting his chin, and deliberately asked, "Miss Mossman, are you in the wrong room?" I glared at him in embarrassment, lifted the covers to get out of bed, but he strode over and firmly pressed down on my hand. He leaned close to me, his breath surrounding me with a faint, refreshing mid-scent. He closed his eyes and kissed me. This kind of thing should be initiated by me. "Harriet, I will make you happy." I wrapped my arms around his neck and kissed him passionately, showing him with my actions that I was willing. The warmth of his palm penetrated my skin, making my heart race. I told him I was very happy.